I just watched Furiosa and Mad Max Fury Road for the first time within the last 2 days. Yes, you heard that right. Just watched Fury Road for the first time. I'm a little bit behind, y'all, I know. I thought it would be an interesting exercise to juxtapose the two films and talk about where each film is better than the other. I want to fully disclose this up front. I absolutely loved both of these films, and they are almost identical in quality. Some aspects of Fury Road I enjoy more than Furiosa and vice versa. So let's take a look at a few elements of filmmaking and compare the two films. By the way, I just posted a short Furiosa review, I'll link it here. I guess spoilers for both. Let's start with the composition of these films. I was shocked to find out that Fury Road actually has a story. Everyone's been talking about this movie to me as if it's just a 2-hour car chase. Which, yeah, I guess it is, but also it does have some emotional story beats that I find fascinating for a movie with no script. I really love the idea of Furiosa fighting against her slave master, essentially, and freeing the women being the driving force of this film. You get to see how something like this affects the entire wasteland, and that is most evident with Max and Nux. The character of Nux is something I'm just a huge fan of. Showing a soldier having high hopes, like in the scene where he tells Immortan Joe how to get into the rig, just seeing what he believes will happen if he succeeds as a soldier.
And I myself will carry you to the gates of Valhalla.
Annihilated.
You will ride eternal, shining and chrome.
Then crushing these hopes and Nux turning to the side of the protagonist. Just an awesome character arc. Those are the dynamic characters I love, showing true growth from someone that wanted to prove himself as a soldier, then suddenly disbanding his original cause. I also love the idea of having these mothers on the rig the entire time because it gives the chase some longevity. First off, more characters to go back and forth with, more characters to watch out for. It also gives the Citadel chasers a reason to apprehend and not just to murder everyone. I also love Immortan Joe's reaction to one of his wives dying. You can tell how much these mothers mean to him. And they also show how they're the driving force behind retaining the Citadel's power. The structure to this film is essentially straight line up, straight line back into victory. And I find the simplicity behind that really magical. Furiosa, on the other hand, is how I typically prefer my origin stories. We start from the beginning, and I was really shocked at how early we started, and for how long we stay this early. Anya Taylor-Joy isn't in this film until about the first hour mark here, and it works. This film, taking place over about 12 years, allows George Miller to tell a patient story about one of the coolest characters in the Mad Max Saga. One of my instant reactions was, I think there are a few scenes that my dad could actually be bored at when watching this for Furiosa, something that seems impossible for Fury Road. That's not necessarily a bad thing. After watching Fury Road, Furiosa has like a line or two about her history, and for George Miller to expand on this well here is a massive achievement. One thing I really love about how Furiosa is kidnapped as a child is it's her fault. She is the one that stays out just a little too long and a little too far. It may seem like a small detail, and yeah, she is just a kid, but when you can rationally put the idea together in your head that you were the cause of your mother dying, you're not only mad at the man who killed your mother, you're mad at yourself. And that's where real growth happens. Another thing I really enjoyed about the structure of this film is how the characters differ after time. Dementis, played by Hemsworth, is a loud, smooth yapper, and he stays that way in the later years as well. But you can see how he's lost the locker room, you could say. Our introduction to him holds him in high regard with his followers, and he's treated with a great deal of respect. They listen to him and believe in him. Later, he stays a babbling idiot to the very end, but the way you could tell no one likes him anymore besides his most stout followers makes his inevitable fall so much greater. I love how even in Furiosa's later years, she is still losing people she cares about, and the relationship with the oil rig driver is one of the better show-not-tell relationships in recent action movie history. Let's go to performances now. For Fury Road, we have to start with Charlize Theron's Furiosa. I understand it's a Mad Max film, but after watching this still feels closer to a Furiosa film more than anything. She's triumphant in the end, praised, she goes through a tragic reveal, she goes through way more than Max in this film, way more. I obviously still love Tom Hardy in the role, but there's just not much to it. Like, yeah, he's going through traumatic flashbacks this whole time, but I still think Furiosa is in the front seat of this movie. Theron's performance is obviously a heavy inspiration for Anya Taylor-Joy, especially when it comes to the voice. These characters sound the exact same when it comes to the end of the Furiosa film to Fury Road. There's a reason why Anya Taylor-Joy took this job and realized what a great opportunity it was. Theron is magnetic in this role. She steals the movie from Tom Hardy because it's a rich role that she excelled in. The way she shows utter devastation, and by the way, as I said this earlier, all without a script. George Miller went to the desert with some money and some drawings and a dream. The way she is so calculated and strategic, it's a role that you just have to be able to convey emotions with purely your face, and Theron murders this. Now obviously, Anya Taylor-Joy has a little more to work with here. She has an entire film dedicated to her growth and her development. Kind of like Heath Ledger versus Joaquin Phoenix for the Joker role. I think Theron is more powerful with less focused on her, but I believe that Anya puts in the work to shape out this character. Even in the first hour she's in this movie, she's ultimately mute. That's one of my favorite parts of her performance, is it's a total lesson in show not tell acting. She's physical, she becomes abrasive, and the ending of this film, when she lets it all out, is something the film has been building for 2.5 hours, and she couldn't have done a better job. I do want to briefly talk about Nicholas Hoult and Chris Hemsworth. Obviously both are entirely different characters playing different roles in different films, but they're also the two standouts for me. I love Immortan Joe in both films, and he is what the wacky Mad Max world needs, but I find these two characters a little more interesting. Nicholas Hoult's introduction to this film is such a farce to what he becomes. I do believe that's in the storytelling of the film, but it's hard not to contribute a lot of this to his performance. I love how desperate he is to be seen by the warlord and how inexperienced he can look at times. His arc becomes such an added plus to this film that I never anticipated going into Fury Road. Then Chris Hemsworth gets the sexy role in Furiosa, the loud talking villain that treats his people like crap but they still love him. He has some of the funniest zingers when he does some of the most truly awful things in this movie. It's hard not to be reminded of him as Thor, especially when he's making jokes, but this film nails the humor for the villain and only makes me think of him as a more evil dude. He's cracking jokes about young Furiosa's tears, he's killing his own men then cracking jokes. I buy him, and that's all I need. His monologue at the end when he's apprehended is something I didn't really know we had in Chris Hemsworth. Those are really the only two aspects I wanted to compare. I don't want to be the umpteenth guy to bring up the effects and how Fury Road looks so much better. There are a few scenes in Furiosa that I don't really buy, but ultimately it never took me out. And yeah, Fury Road feels like a perfect moment in time to make a movie like that, but they're both great George Miller films. I don't know how he makes any of this work at 80 years old. I slightly prefer Fury Road, but if they're making another Mad Max film, I'd probably prefer it to play out more like Furiosa. I'd probably prefer a more expanded story. Which one do you prefer out of the two? I love them both. I promise you they're both excellent. I'll see y'all later.